It is very clear from historical perspectives and from those who lived through the history that Idi Amin was said to be arrested before 25th January 1971, before Dr. Milton Obote returned from the Commonwealth meeting in Singapore, where he was a key discussant. They wanted Amin arrested over a report made by the Auditor General, Mr. Kibiswa, in 1969-1970 period, about a loss of 41,834,630 shillings, which occurred in the Ministry of Defense. Idi Amin and Felix Onama, the Defense Minister, were in the fix. There had been changes in the Uganda Army leadership. Amin was promoted to the position of Major General and made Chief of Defense Force. It was considered a very ceremonial role, a title which was occupied by Brigadier Shaban Opolot before he was detained in 1969. The machinery to implement the arrest of Idi Amin was put into motion. It was coordinated by the Minister of Internal Affairs, Bassett Bataringaya. It was chaired by the Inspector General of Police, Irinayo Oriama, Brigadier Hussein, the new Army Chief of Staff, Kano Musa, the new Commander of the Air Force, the head of the CID, Mr. Hassan, and Kampala Police Chief, Dusman Suleiman, on the other hand, worked in total silence. He chaired several meetings, which was attended by his close allies. He told officers not to follow the new army command structure ordered by Dr. Obote. He and his allies had made arrangements that Dr. Milton Obote and his entourage would be executed when they landed at Entebbe Airport from Singapore. This message was communicated to Dr. Obote by his intelligence services. Kenya's Vice President, Mr. Daniel Arap Moi, had also relayed the information to Dr. Obote's entourage. All Amin loyalist soldiers had specific orders on what to do. 1,000-man army, trained by Amin and established at Bamunanika, and they were deployed later to different army barracks in Uganda in fear that they would cause problems, were also informed. Kampala, the Malire Mechanized unit, was staffed by both Amin and Obote allies. The role of this unit was very critical in the overthrow of Dr. Milton Obote, in the capture of different military installations. Malire Mechanized unit was created as a result of a series of reforms that were carried out in the Ugandan army. Following the attack, which took place in 1965 on the Ugandan border posts of Paida and Goli by the Congolese Air Force, it was decided actually that the Ugandan army should be bolstered. These planes bombed the villages. Planes had been supplied to the mercenary-backed government of Congo by the United States. Congolese military sources accused Ugandan soldiers of fighting alongside the Congolese rebels. The Congolese government became aware that Soviet army weapons were being directed to the rebels through West Nile in Uganda. One of the countries which facilitated the movement of the arms were China, the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, Algeria, and Egypt, among others. As a result of increasing militarization, Uganda acquired a number of tanks and armored cars, in addition to British-made Viscount armored cars. In 1968, a film of the Arab-Israeli War of 1967 was shown to soldiers and their families at the army barracks ground in the 1st Battalion Ugandan Rifles. Israel then had a strong training team in Uganda led by Colonel Balev. Soldiers talked of plans to buy tanks and armored cars. The American-made M4A1 Sherman tank started arriving in Uganda between 1968 to 1970. This version of tank was among the earliest models of American army tanks. The tanks had seen wars on the German-Russian front line, the Arab-Israeli War of 1948, 56, and 67, the Japanese-USA wars in Malaysia and Philippines during the Second World War. The French, British, Egyptian War of 1956. And 50,000 of these type of tanks have been produced. Manufacturing closed process. The Israelis refurbished these tanks by collecting as many spare parts from war booty fields all over the world. It was observed at one time that weapons which were used in the Second World War were given to Arabs in the Arab-Israeli War, then captured by the Israelis, then refurbished, and then sold to a number of countries, which included Uganda. 12 Sherman tanks in Uganda showed different colors and markings. This was a result of major refurbishment. 68 Uganda Army received Czechoslovakian-made OT-64 armored personnel cars. Together with the British-made Viscount armored cars were used to create the Malire Mechanized unit. Observed in the case of Malire that when the time came for the arrest of Idi Amin, Colonel Okwengu, commanding officer Malire Mechanized unit, was allotted by Lieutenant Colonel Idi Amin to lead the process. Amin loyalists were aware of the plot and they embarked on capturing all armored personnel cars and tanks and used them to attack and capture key installations in Kampala. They captured Brigadier Hussein and Basil Bataringaya. Both Colonel Tito Okello and Lieutenant Colonel Ito Jok escaped. The director of CID, Hassan Muhammad, was captured after the coup. Meanwhile, other Amin loyalists moved in to take over all armouries in military barracks throughout Uganda. Hence, the Malire Mechanized unit with the armored personnel carriers were crucial in the overthrow of the government of Dr. Milton Obote in 1971. One moment, Idi Amin left his command post in Kampala and traveled 80 kilometers to Jinja to pick Colonel Langoya, a Sanders-trained commanding officer of the 1st Battalion Ugandan Rifles. He was a major prize together with other commanding officers who were all arrested. Traveled in an armored personnel carrier provided by the Malire Mechanized unit. A strong opposition came from the General Service unit. However, they could not withstand the heavy guns of the Malire Mechanized unit. The morning hours of January 25th, 1971, all opposition to the coup had been crushed. What was crucial for Amin was that the plans by his loyalists of seizing brigade and battalion command posts succeeded. Most of the commanding officers were not at the post. They reported at the last minute and were not able to organize Obote loyalists. They fell into a trap, were arrested, brought to Kampala, and executed. A few managed to escape. Could have been a tricky situation for Amin if he only succeeded with mobilizing Malire Mechanized Battalion and not the other barracks all over the Republic of Uganda. It would have led to a civil war-like situation. Securing armouries and loyalist officers to take over the barracks was an important aspect in the coup planning. This is actually how the coup succeeded. After the military coup in Uganda, Dr. Milton Obote at one time indicated that when he had arrived in Nairobi from Singapore, he had wanted to travel across the border from Malaba into Uganda and oppose the coup. By any surety, this was going to be almost impossible. Amin had seized all barracks and arms were only given to his loyalists. In the morning of 25th January 1971, only Amin loyalists had arms, including members of the 2,000-man army created by Amin at Bamnanika, but redeployed to other barracks on the supervision of Lieutenant Colonel Oito Jok, the Army Quartermaster General, on suspicion that they were planning to overthrow the government. All barracks after the coup were heavily fortified, and the Malire Mechanized unit sent to beef up army units all over the Republic of Uganda. Senior officers suspected of supporting Obote were picked up and executed. If Dr. Obote would have attempted to land at Entebbe, an armored unit under Lieutenant Maliamungu would have attacked his plane and entourage. In fact, it was the same officers who attacked the airport and killing and injuring a number of passengers who had just arrived. Using M14A Sherman tank and armored personnel carrier. It was not until July 1971 that a purge was carried out of all Obote loyalists following the visit of Amin to Britain and Israel. Many soldiers lost their lives. Kindly subscribe, comment, and give a like.